IPMNation.com.
This is Jonathan Lorentz. You're listening to Local Outbreak on IPMNation.com and 100.1 FM The Planet.
Welcome to Local Outbreak on 100.1 The Planet and IPM Nation. This is Matt from IPM Nation, and Melissa is kindly handing me something to drink. Thank you. We're at the studio, as we are every week, at 50 Canal Street in downtown Laconia. Please support your local businesses as well as local music and check it out. TheStudioNH.com is a website if you want to have a look. And very cool place, funky little gift shop and art gallery, and very happy that Melissa lets us do the show here every week. We're also sponsored by Central NH Events. If you need a DJ for your event, you can go to centralnhevents.com. And Tim Martin does a phenomenal job. And, of course, Tweak Sound and Mastering at tweaksound.com. If you need some engineering done, Mr. Matt Marcil, he's located right in Concord, New Hampshire. And, of course, Sonic Wallpaper, which is doing a lot for the community. Please check out my interviews with Ryan LeMay about Sonic Wallpaper and, offering guitar lessons and some other cool stuff in the local community for folks who particularly youngsters who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford them. So very, very positive stuff, and proud to have them as a sponsor as well. And, in fact, our guest tonight came to us via Mr. Ryan LeMay. Of course, we have Jonathan Lorentz with us tonight. Is it Lorentz or Lorentz? Or
You tell me. I think it's Lorenz.
It looks like, Lorenz, like kind of soft tea.
I like to hang on the Z.
Yeah, Lorenz.
Yeah.
And we have a lot to talk about because you do all kinds of stuff.
I do, yeah.
You're a multifaceted musician type guy.
Yeah, and before I get into that, I want to get this on tape here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we hear this?
I'd open that too. So you're drinking.
There we go.
You're drinking a non-alcoholic beverage.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. Unfortunately, I don't know why you would do that. I know why. There's only one beer. I'm drinking the beer, so I appreciate it. I'm not much of a drinker, but
When
if I can
in
just
Rome.
get it open. So you brought. Why don't we? We'll get to some music. You did bring a CD with you tonight. Like I said, you do a lot of different stuff. But what's this now? This is a full-length album called Borderlands.
Yeah.
And looks like so. Was this a band type situation? Because I see some other people listed on here. It looks like a solo album, but you had some other musicians with you.
Typically, I spent a lot of years playing pretty exclusively jazz music.
Yeah.
And I lived in New York City and then upstate New York for a while. Any jazz musician will tell you that it's a pretty, I don't want to say mercenary, but it's a lot. It's like pickup basketball every night of the week. You're with a different group of players, and everybody knows the rules, but it might be a different game. But I was fortunate to fall in with these two musicians, a bassist named John Menegon and a drummer named Dave Calarco. And we actually had the band experience, where we played tons of shows together, recorded together, toured a little bit in the Northeast, and that just it was a wonderful experience to have that the band feel, with otherwise pickup in an otherwise pickup world, and. So I was very pleased to be able to work with these guys. They were also kind of mentors to me.
Really? Yeah.
Both of them had been in other bands where, unfortunately, their band leaders had all passed on. So these were guys that were left with nights of the week open. Yeah. And I sought them out and kind of tried to keep them busy with work. And they kicked my butt every night. But, it was good for me. And so this is the project that came out of that. A lot of it's all original music, and towards the end I started to add some vocal tracks with a jazz singer named Terry Roiger and actually an opera singer named Suzanne Kontorsky. Oh, no kidding! Wow. And that stuff is we'll have to play some of that. We'll play some of each because they're just drastically different styles.
Cool. Yeah. Well, what do you want to play to start?
Maybe we can. Maybe we'll hit that tune. Sounds like it's kind of the second tune on the album there.
Track 2. Okay.
Yeah, the opening track is kind of a short little snippet that kind of introduces the whole thing. But then that second track is really the first. First track in earnest.
All right, so we'll start with that. So we're going to play Sounds Like from Jonathan Lorentz, the CD Borderlands. I'm trying. And then we'll come back and chat some more here on Local Outbreak. Let's take a listen.
Hi, this is Ryan LeMay from the New Prophets, and I'd like to tell you about a program called Sonic Wallpaper, which is donation-based guitar lessons offered at the Laconia Community Center every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 o'clock. Sign up directly at the community center, call, or go on their website for more information, or email me at thenewprophets@gmail.com. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Body Health, Massage and Wellness, BluePlanetCMS.com, Jennifer's Color Bar, German Motorsports, George Chiquette, Rob Reed, Bob Rice, The New Prophets, Manchester Music Mill, and Abbott Business Networks.
Local Outbreak on IPM Nation 2 and 100.1 The Planet. This is Matt from IPM Nation. We're here tonight with Jonathan Lorentz. We're playing some music from his album Borderlands, but, like we were saying at the top of the show, you do a lot of different kinds of stuff, but I do want to focus on the jazz thing for a little bit because I've never played jazz, but I've always been fascinated by, and you talked about it in the beginning, that kind of thing where you can play in different configurations, and it's kind of like, what was you compared it to like a pickup game?
Pickup basketball, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that intimidating at first when you first kind of dive into that?
Absolutely,
I would think it would be.
There's that, one of the things I also play in a number of other ensembles. Play in a rock and pop band called Fill in the Blanks, which is local to the Lakes region.
Yeah.
And what's so wonderful about that is we know each other, we trust each other, we get to see each other a lot, and be social. So there's already that bond when you get to the bandstand. And,
sure.
Who knows what curveballs will come at you throughout the course of an evening.
Right.
So it's great to have that experience when you fall into that jazz world where everything is, for the most part, a pickup situation and different groups on different nights.
Yeah.
It is intimidating at first just because you don't know what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
And if they, it comes down to, geez, do the other kids like me?
Yeah. See, I've always just played in rock bands where you've got, you write some songs and then you play them and the songs don't really change. But when I was a kid, my stepbrother Paul, he's a jazz musician. I've kind of lost touch with him. I don't know if he still does, but I used to watch him play in Chicago. I'd spend the summers with my family out in Chicago, and sometimes we would go with him to play with these local guys, and he was like I remember him being 14, 15, and he's playing with these adults. There's a guy named Ray Bailey.
Okay.
I don't know how famous he is in the jazz world. He was certainly famous in Chicago, locally famous. But it was fascinating to me watching him in that configuration where, he had no idea. And he was just a kid. They weren't explaining anything to him ahead of time. He was just jumping in. If he could hang with them, they'd let him stay. And he could hang with them. He was a horn player. But, it was just very interesting.
Yeah, there's you learn a lot about your fellow musicians in these. Every night when it is a pickup thing, every night feels like a new audition.
Yeah.
So you learn a lot about how important it is to listen to your fellow man. Yeah. And wait perhaps a few seconds before saying anything, whether it's musically or verbally or what have you.
Yeah.
And so things like that, they're great life lessons that you get from meeting new people. All the time I'll be on a bandstand and I'll be introducing the bass player to the drummer because they've never met before.
Yeah.
And it's kind of comical because we're in between songs and it's like, oh, by the way, John, this is the Jack over here on drums, and they shake hands. And,
yeah.
and the people in the front row are like, did they just meet on stage?
Yeah, yeah.
And as you were mentioning with your band experience, you do get to rehearse when you have a band.
Right, yeah.
You do get the great comfort and it's how music ought to be. It should be rehearsed. And, so what's interesting with the jazz thing is that because most of the time it is not rehearsed, so much of it therefore is improvised.
Right.
And the parts that we kind of agree upon, whether it's we're going to play a certain song, we're going to play Have You Met Miss Jones? So we agree on we're going to play the first part of this tune, we're going to play the melody, and everybody agrees how that should go. And these are the chords that go throughout that melody, and now we're just going to keep looping those 32 measures of chords and improvise over that, and that could be 8 minutes of material right there, depending on how big the band is and how creative and long-winded everybody happens to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the agreement is that you'll play the melody at the end, what they call the outhead, and that tells you that we're on the way out of the song. We'll be finishing up now. you know.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff happens even with folks that don't know each other, even folks that maybe don't even speak the same language. In New York City, this would happen all the time. We'd be on a jam session, and there'd be folks that just didn't have the whole English thing together, or they spoke bad English, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so eye contact.
Music really is it sounds hokey to say it, but it's true. It is the universal language.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So that's the I use the analogy of your typical jazz song is like a sandwich, and each piece of bread is the melody.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens in the middle, that's kind of what makes it interesting. It
Yeah.
gives it character. And it's kind of the reason I got into eating sandwiches to begin with.
Right.
Everything in the middle is, that's the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And your structure, your bookends are that bread on the outside. So
yeah.
So I don't know if that.
Yeah. Does it ever go wrong?
Never. Yeah, I'm nodding my head. It does. And with the best bands, I think you can count on, probably once a night, there's going to be a point where things get squirrely.
Yeah.
Where you can just feel that the pulse has, you're almost caught in a time warp, and you're not entirely sure where that form is. Because we're talking, like with that song, Have You Met Miss Jones, it's a 32-bar form, 32 measures of music, and then you repeat it over and over. So these musicians are counting for 8 minutes straight, or they've got it they've counted it enough that now it's second nature, but still they're feeling exactly where they are in that form.
Yeah.
But if that's ever off by a beat, like from where the bass player and the piano player is, well then, who's right and who's wrong?
Right, yeah.
So,
Sure.
So there's got to be a negotiation there. And I would say, even with the best bands, there's going to be a point where somebody has a night where that form gets just a hair squirrely.
Yeah.
And usually, the more experienced players say, they say something musically, that lines up the form again.
Okay.
And, the drummer can do it. And all of a sudden you're recounting with him, or the bass player drops some root note at the right time. Oh, okay, that's where we're going to be. Somebody takes control of the form, and okay, you breathe a sigh of relief, and then you go on to the next.
Does that kind of experience help you in other genres of music that you're in? Like, in other words, I'm trying to find the right words for this. Does that help you in terms of dealing with other musicians in a more structured environment, in terms of being sort of intuitive?
Yeah.
Like, you know how some people you write songs with, and there's almost like an intuitive thing where you're just kind of on the same wavelength with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just it's one way of developing your listening, I would say. You could also do it listening to every single Beethoven, orchestral piece, or you could do it by listening to microtonal music from the Far East.
Yeah.
Or, I think there's many different ways you can get it. But certainly I know that the jazz musicians that I love, they have this ability to, get themselves into scrapes, and then they get themselves out of it. And they do it in a way that's almost genius.
Yeah.
So I do think that's more than anything, it develops that listening ability. And then I'll apply any listening skills I have. I'll apply it to, I can learn a song really quick. If somebody, I've just started playing piano and singing recently as like a solo piano bar guy.
Yeah.
And so now I have a lot of tunes to learn. But I'll also do that when I go out and do like a wedding event. And if somebody requests, hey, I really want that song from Twilight. I really want, you name it. I really want, some really interesting song that I, for some reason, just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I can learn it real quick.
Yeah.
I can spend a few minutes either in my home studio or sometimes in the car and do the transcription in my head.
No kidding.
And
wow.
and if it's just going to be an instrumental version, then I especially can do it quickly. The lyrics, and understanding. I'm slower at that. I haven't spent as much time doing that.
But
yeah, that's the listening skill thing.
Yeah.
I think anything you do with music, even tuning a guitar really quick, or
Sure,
or,
yeah.
you know.
Is this now this CD Borderlands? You were in New York when you recorded this?
Yes, well, we were in upstate New York. We were
Okay.
in Woodstock when we recorded it, and that's an amazing scene because so many folks have left New York City and they drove straight up the interstate and just landed in these cool little artistic pockets along the interstate, along the Hudson.
Yeah.
And so you know, there are, you know, great local musicians, but there are also like jazz musicians like Sonny Rollins and Joe Lovano and Jack DeJohnette. They all live, you know, right there in that corridor. And so all the folks that play with them are in that area too, you know. And there's just a really cool, you know, kind of high level feeling for how this music should come across. It's not very laid back. It's some people call it upstate burn.
Oh, okay.
So it's more aggressive than not.
And I don't, as I'm looking at the line notes, by the way, I don't think we mentioned you play tenor sax.
Oh, right. Yep.
On the CD.
Yep.
As I'm looking at it, occurred to me I don't think we mentioned that. But do you play? And you just recently learned piano?
Well, I mean I took piano lessons as a kid, and
Yeah.
And don't tell my mom this, but I hated them.
Really?
Just hated them. And it's funny because as soon as I was able to quit piano lessons, I played more, I think, just messing around. I never got anywhere on the darn instrument, but I did spend some time just playing with it for fun.
Yeah.
And you know, and then I just completely stopped altogether.
Yeah.
And I would use the piano to grade papers, or I would use the piano to write compositions.
Yeah.
But I never, you know, would dare to go out and play it in front of people. And I bought a keyboard this winter that I've just loved it ever since
kidding.
I got this keyboard. And so I went out and had my first solo piano bar gig at the Gunstock Inn up in Guilford.
Yeah.
Over the winter, and I was just I was terrified, but I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
And it was just pure learning, you know, just all these new tunes or old tunes that I had played on saxophone for years that I never knew the lyrics to, you know.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was a sad song, for example. Or I didn't know it was you know, a love song, or a love song that's actually a breakup song, or what have you, you know.
Yeah. How old were you when you started playing sax?
I was, this was just a few months after quitting piano. I was,
no kidding.
12?
Yeah.
I think I was 12.
Did you know, like, when you stopped playing piano, did you already have it in mind that you were going to continue with music? You wanted to move on to the sax? Or?
I think I did. And you know, the basic story was that my dad had played saxophone in New Jersey for many years in the 1960s, Jersey Shore, you know, boardwalk, all that kind of surf rock kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Straight up rock and roll. So he had the horns in the attic. He hadn't touched it in several years.
Yeah.
And so he brought these horns down and showed me, and I'm like, wow, that is just, I don't even know. I know it's a saxophone, but at the time, the California Raisins were hot.
Yeah.
And you could hear Clarence Clemens on some Bruce Springsteen albums.
Right.
That's about all I was hearing for saxophone.
Yeah.
I grew up over in Vermont, up in the hills, and it was fairly isolated, you could say.
Yeah.
So we got one of the saxes overhauled and tried playing it, and it was, you know, I was god awful, but my dad played a little bit and showed me some things, and then he did. I'll never forget this. I asked him if I could learn, if he could teach me a song, and he gave me a record and said, "Here, teach yourself." I was like in 6th grade, like I knew nothing about nothing. It was Yakety Yak by the Coasters.
Oh yeah.
I think it's like a 1958 record or something.
Yeah.
And it has a cool sax solo in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to play that, you know. And I think we were putting together a concert at our little elementary school, and I was like, I have a saxophone. I think we could do this song, you know.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sure. And so he gave me the record. He's like, go ahead, learn it.
Wow.
And I was like, it took me months upon months to get this thing together. And it was in a weird key. It was an F sharp, which is a horrible key for any instrument, let alone the saxophone.
Right.
And and I just worked on it and worked on it. And I probably had it about 40%, okay.
Yeah.
And was just able to stumble my way through it, and I was hooked. It was just a really fascinating instrument.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's play another track from your disc. What do you want to play next?
Great. Let's do Drive Down.
Okay.
This is one. I'm a fan of some sort of offbeat film and TV. I watched a lot of David Lynch movies.
Yeah.
and I was on a Twin Peaks kick.
Yeah.
And I was especially getting into the dark vibe of his composer, Angelo Badalamenti.
Okay.
And so this song was kind of directly inspired by that kind of,
All right.
that kind of Twin Peaks vibe.
All right.
And the opera singer Suzanne Kontorsky is singing on this track.
Oh,
It's
cool.
sort of eerie,
Oh, cool. All right.
pretty stuff.
Let's take a listen. This is Drive Down from Jonathan Lorenz disc Borderlands, and then we'll come back and chat some more here on Local Outbreak. Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet. This is Matt from IPM Nation. I'll remind you, we are here at the studio at 50 Canal Street in downtown Laconia. TheStudioNH.com is a website if you want to check it out online, but please come down and say hello to Melissa. She'd love to see you, and very, very cool place. Like I say, please support your local businesses as well as local musicians, and we're talking tonight with Jonathan Lorentz, and we've got his disc Borderlands here, but I want to hear about some of the other stuff you do. We talked about the piano bar. Stuff, and you mentioned too. What's the name of the band? Phil.
Oh, Fill in the Blanks.
Fill in the Blanks. Yeah. Tell us a little more about that.
Oh, sure.
Too.
Well, that's a project that's led by Paul Warnick, who's a guitarist, singer, songwriter, and also an educator down at Guilford Middle School, or is it elementary school? It's one of those two. And he's been just a stalwart, part of a huge, important part of the music scene in the Lakes region and in New Hampshire for quite a while.
Okay.
And, he'll run out and do a show at the Flying Monkey up in Plymouth or down at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. But he'll also do like a fairly regular weekly gig over at Patrick's Pub in Guilford.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's put this band together, and it's just it's such a fun band.
Yeah.
There's a bassist from Oklahoma who now lives in the region, a guy named Whit Privet, who's got an amazing high range vocally, but just a beautiful bassist. There's a drummer named Rick Page, originally a Gilmanton boy who made his way to L.A., spent time in the Air Force Band, played in all these L.A. bands, got this incredible drum groove that's, you just can't make this stuff up, It's and he moved back to the area, a few years back, and so he's great fun to play with. And a piano player named Joe DeLoe, who's actually a college buddy of mine from Plymouth State.
Yeah.
And he's a Yamaha-endorsed piano player.
Oh, wow.
He's a tech director down at the Dana Center down at St. Anselm College.
Okay.
And he's just a fabulous musician. So playing with these guys, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And we'll run out. We have a wedding this weekend. We'll play maybe up at the Woodstock station or wherever. We'll pop up here and there from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's a very fun band. We just shoot right down the middle and hit all the pop tunes, everything from Stevie Wonder to, Pharrell, Macklemore.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we get to all wear a lot of different hats in that band.
That's cool. Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a party band.
So what about the open night that you do?
Oh, yeah. We just started an open mic over at Patrick's Pub in Guilford.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll be doing our second week now. We run every Tuesday night from 6:30 till 10.
Yeah.
And it's open to all musicians, professionals, budding professionals, music students, and we get a lot of listeners too that just want to see a variety of different acts.
Yeah.
We've seen great turnouts, and a lot of folks coming in with guitars. They'll play a couple tunes, 3 tunes, try out an original,
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm really excited about, we bring in a featured artist each week.
Yeah.
To do a sort of a showcase slot at 8:30. And that's kind of a treat. We've been doing 15-minute slots for a couple hours.
Sure.
And then we get to sit and everybody gets a show.
Yeah.
It's somebody that's really worked up a set.
Yeah.
that wants to, but still can blend into the whole kind of community vibe of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice. I couldn't think of a better place to do it.
Yeah.
There's just a warm atmosphere. The staff is very warm. The sound system's great, and so we'll be doing that every Tuesday night. I bring my electric piano,
Yeah.
and I'll open up with a short set and play, whatever it happens to be, and
Yeah.
and then I'll just start bringing people up to do their solo bits, and
Excellent.
and yeah, so far so good, and we
Yeah.
hope to see more folks out there, and of course anybody interested in a featured set there can also talk with me, and we'll get them scheduled.
That's cool. That kind of shakes up the typical open mic format a little bit.
That has been a really key ingredient. It does. Otherwise, 3 hours would feel kind of long and it'd get a little tiring. So it does shake it up, and it also gives us a little time at the end to have a few more slots. And at that point, things are very loose.
Yeah.
And it's actually, you're a few diners may have gone home at this point.
Sure,
it's getting close to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So there's, we might see somebody bring out a trumpet and sit in, or a saxophone. I'm actually going to bring
you're
out.
Used to that.
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But and I'm enjoying being the guy that's playing the piano behind them as the supporting role for a change.
Yeah.
Not being the soloist, but
Yeah.
But we're also bringing out music students that folks that are trying out for all state auditions or
that's
college
cool.
auditions.
Yeah.
You need to get some time in with other musicians whenever possible, pro musicians.
Definitely.
And if possible in front of people. So this is a great way to come by and try out their hand at whatever those audition pieces might be and be backed up with the piano and stuff. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, we're trying to reach out to all generations, and so far we've seen folks from a pretty young age right on through some elders.
Yeah.
And it's been nice.
What was it that made you want to do an open mic?
I had just thrown my hat in the ring as a piano bar guy. I was playing Patrick's as a their Saturday night solo.
Yeah.
And I've known the co-owner, Alan Beadle, for a while now, just on a friendly basis, and have worked for him in the past. And he pitched it to me. He said, we want to do something with Tuesdays, and we're thinking open mic, and we're thinking you, but, tell us why it should be you.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But we just, let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. And so far it's been really fun.
Yeah.
So I never really thought about doing that, but I think I got the skill set to call up the friends and get stuff in the paper, and and
that's awesome.
And play the supporting role too, and
You're a busy guy with music. You got anything else going on we haven't mentioned? You got any other bands or
you got
a lot going on.
Honestly, probably I did start a music company, Lorentz Music Services, which is if you go to jonathanlorentz.com, that's the website for that. That's JONATHANLORENTZ.com. And I'm offering services for private events and weddings and things like that.
Okay.
And what I like to do is offer a package deal where if somebody needs ceremony music, cocktail hour music, dinner music, dance music, I help that client find exactly what they want and need and get it to fit within a budget that doesn't scare them or scare anybody to tears.
Right.
And so I do a lot of DJing myself. That's been a new thing in the last few years, and it's been absolutely bread and butter for these few years.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is, a lot of folks in their 20s getting married are looking for a DJ, and sometimes they'll, their parents will convince them, hey, let's get a live band because that's awesome, So whenever possible, we do the live band thing. But I do like to do the DJ thing and then say, hey, how about piano on your ceremony? How about whatever songs you want? We'll do them live on your ceremony. How about saxophone on your cocktail hour? And sometimes they're looking for a string trio, so I'll find that professional string trio and bring them into the mix, or I'll find that acoustic guitarist and bring them into the mix, or I always want to bring in a magician.
Yeah.
But nobody ever well, that's not true. That's not true. But maybe in the future I'll be able to bring magicians with me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, so that's been a big part of what I do. I do some consulting for venues, helping them book and then promote their series, and do some consulting too for just professional musicians that are trying to put their stuff out there or change directions. I would call it life coaching for musicians.
Oh, okay.
In some cases, we're doing budgetary audits to make sure that they're not losing a ton of money in their pursuit. The little bit of advice that I usually start with, which is advice you get directly from your IRS tax forms, is this. are you doing this as a hobby or are you doing this as a living?
Right.
And let's do the numbers and find out
Right.
if it's a hobby or not. And it's okay if it is a hobby. You'd rather know that it is.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you're not starving someplace,
Definitely.
So that's another little thing I do.
Well, that's good to know, because we assume with a show like this, too, that probably a lot of our audience, if not most of our audience, is local musicians who are or people who are in some way involved in the scene. So to know that you do that is probably helpful, to a lot of people to hear about that. So
Yeah, and I, as I tell my clients, I start giving credit where credit is due, and that's directly to my wife, who's got an amazing background in economics and
good.
and
Yeah.
and budgets and all that stuff. And she was the first one to teach me, hey, let's look at exactly what it costs you to drive to Franconia and back.
Right.
Really, what it costs you. Let's see, exactly what you're making hourly for doing this, even if it is a great paying gig. Let's make sure that hourly,
Yeah.
So once she sort of got me to think along the lines of, oh, there is such a thing as doing this professionally, and that's going to mean I have to account for a lot of,
Right.
Cross a lot of T's,
Yeah.
dot a lot of I's.
Yeah.
But anyway, and now I can pass on that those little tidbits to friends and clients and stuff. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Well, let's play another track from your disc, Borderlands. What do you
Great.
wanna play next?
I think the one I'd love to play, it's called Train Fare, and it was written by my friend Dave Calarco, the drummer on the album, and it's a direct homage to John Coltrane, who
Oh, really?
he wrote this song Giant Steps, which is one of the hardest songs to play in the jazz canon. So this tune Train Fare is a play off of that Giant Steps song.
Okay.
Not to get too theoretical, but it just goes through a lot of chords that shouldn't fit together very quickly.
Really? Okay.
So instead of like a 1-4-5 or a 1-6-4-5, which musicians are like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's more like a 1 minor 3 flat 6 flat 2.
Yeah.
And then it does it again in another key.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm already lost. So anyway.
Well, this will be interesting. Then.
Yeah,
Okay.
Train Fare.
All right, cool. This is Train Fare from Jonathan Lorentz and his disc Borderlands here on Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet. Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet. Just want to remind everybody, of course, that we are sponsored by Central NH Events. If you need a DJ for your event, you can go to centralnhevents.com. And also Tweak Sound and Mastering at tweaksound.com. Sonic Wallpaper. And, of course, you'll hear the spot at the end of the show for the great work that Ryan LeMay is doing with that. And don't forget, we do the show every week here at the studio at 50 Canal Street in downtown Laconia. And, of course, Local Outbreak is every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on both 100.1 The Planet and IPM Nation 2, which you can find at ipmnation.com/live2. And there is a replay Saturdays at 9. And our guest tonight, Jonathan Lorentz. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we wrap up, too, I know you had something coming up that you wanted to
Oh,
mention.
yes. I have this really fun jazz trio called the Soul Revival. We had just played, actually, at our Laconia New Hampshire Coffee Festival. And that band is going to be playing up in Bristol, New Hampshire on October the 10th at the Mill Fudge Factory, the back room at the Mill Fudge Factory. And it's this awesome little venue. They, every couple weeks in the summer months and then into the fall, they'll turn their back room into this little nightclub.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
it's just such a great little spot.
Yeah.
So we'll bring our organ and our drum set, and I'll be playing tenor sax that night. And, with this band, it's very fun. It's a lot of funk music, a lot of gospel music, blues. It's sort of the grittier side of jazz music.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's very fun, and I know that tickets are available through the Mill Fudge Factory website, but there'll still be some at the door, I would hope. And
Cool.
and,
Okay.
join us if you can. Yeah.
Right, October 10th. Very good. By the way, the disc Borderlands that we've been featuring tonight, is this available online? Where can people get this?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it directly from the record company, which is Metier Jazz.
Okay.
But I know Amazon is the way I usually shop, so it's
Yeah,
an easy way to do. You can get it on iTunes if you want to do
Okay.
downloads as well.
Okay.
It's in a number of stores, but I think most of them are in the UK and
Yeah.
different parts of Europe. That's where the record company is based. So.
Although, you'd probably encourage people to get the physical copy. Anyway,
Yeah,
because
or
it's got-
just
it's
find
got
me
the
on a
nice-
gig. I'll have them in my backpack.
Yeah, yeah. It's got the liner notes and everything.
Yeah. Oh,
Nice.
I really like that.
Yeah.
that-
No, me too,
How that
yeah.
all came out, and the gentleman that wrote those notes, he writes for Jazz Times magazine.
Oh, no
and,
kidding. Oh, wow.
And Downbeat
Cool.
magazine, and
Yeah.
so he's
that's awesome.
he really did him justice. He really.
You should give us your website one more time.
Oh, sure. It's jonathanlorentz.com, and that's JONATHANLORENTZ. And also, I have another website called nhjazz.com,
Oh,
which
okay.
lists a lot of different artists playing jazz or jazz-related shows throughout the New Hampshire area, roughly. There's some Vermont venues, some Massachusetts venues, and
Okay.
stuff like that. But that's if you're looking for a jazz or blues fix, go to nhjazz.com, and
Cool.
we'll usually have something for you where you can find some music in your area.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Great.
And let's play one more track from
Great.
this.
I would love to play, actually, it's the last track. It's called Addiction.
Okay.
And as I was saying before about getting to know songs and lyrics, this is a song I wrote. It's actually a love song, but it's clearly written by somebody who's spent too much time in bars.
Okay.
And my friend Terry Roiger is singing on this, and I just love her voice. It puts me where I need to be. So.
Okay. All right. So we'll take a listen. So this is Addiction from Jonathan Lorentz here on Local Outbreak on IPM Nation and 100.1 The Planet.
I can't stop. I can't stop drinking you down. I can't stop the sting and the bitter. I can't stop the ringing sound. I can't help looking you over and drinking you down. Under the spell of neon nightlights, a glowing hell of spirits will fall, an opulent kiss and copulative bliss, solo dance, solo song. I can't stop the fear of withstanding. I can't stop having it all. I can't help looking you over and drinking you down.
IPMNation.com.